All right, so from here, once you change your percentage to moles, so you divide by 12.01 and you should get 6.65 moles of carbon. And for hydrogen, once you divide, it should be 20.0 moles of hydrogen. Right, so the next step is divide by the smallest and round to whole. Right, so you're going to divide by your smallest, so either 20 or 6.65 is the smallest, and which is 6.65 moles, and you're going to divide this one as well. Right, so 6.65 divided by 6.65 is 1, and 20.0 divided by 6.65 is 3. Right, so your your empirical formula is exactly what it is, right? So there's going to be 1 carbon. So your empirical is equal to carbon, there's just 1, and hydrogen, we said there's 3. And that's it. Right? So there's that example. And then here's another one. So find your empirical formula for 26.7% phosphorus, 12.1 nitrogen, and 61.2% chlorine, right? So start off the same way. Convert your percentage to mass, percent to mass. So it should be 26.7% or grams phosphorus. You have 12.1 grams of nitrogen and 61.2 grams of chlorine. Right, so from your periodic table, this is where you get your numbers. Whatever's up here, grams of phosphorus goes on the bottom, and this is equal to 1 mole. 1 mole of nitrogen, how many grams of nitrogen, and the 1 mole of chlorine, your conversion of grams of chlorine. Right, so like I said, from the periodic table, your grams of phosphorus should be 31.0. Your grams of nitrogen should be 14.01. And your grams of chlorine should be 35.45. Right? So this means you divide. So 26.7 divided by 31, you should get 0.861 moles of P. 12.1 divided by 14.01, you get 0.864 moles of nitrogen. And then your last one is your chlorine. So 61.2 divided by 35.45, you should get 1.72 moles of chlorine. The next step is divide by your smallest, right? So your smallest is this one, 0.861. You divide each one by your smallest. Right, so this is equal to 1. This is equal to 1. And 1.72 divided by 8.61 is equal to 2. Right, like I said, this is your empirical formula. So for phosphorus, you should have 1, P1. You don't have to put the 1. Nitrogen, there's only 1 of those. And chlorine, there's 2 of those. Right, so that's your empirical formula. I'll leave these slides up for you on Google Classroom, guys, so that way you guys can look back at it. If you need to start studying for your notes, I will leave this along with the video that I'm doing right now on your Google Classroom. All right, so the next thing is empirical formula. Molecular formula. So molecular formula are the actual formulas that may be, and it might be the same as a empirical formula, or you have to multiply your empirical by a factor to get your molecular. So molecular is actually the actual formula of what it's supposed to be of the compound. All right, so find the multiple, take the gram formula mass, and divide by the empirical formula, right? So that's your equation right there. N is equal to the gram formula mass divided by your empirical formula mass. Right, so you're going to multiply each subscript. So N whatever you get for N, you're going to multiply that by each subscript in the empirical formula to get your molecular, right? So we'll do examples of that. So a white powder is analyzed and found to have an empirical formula, P2O5. The compound has a molar mass of 283.9. What is the compound's molecular formula? Right, so for this problem, they give you P2O5 is your empirical. P2O5. And then they give you as well your molar mass, right? So they're asking for molecular formula. Right, so the first step would be to find out how much, or your gram formula mass for, your empirical mass is, right? So your phosphorus weighs, based on your periodic table, phosphorus has 30.97 times 2. There's 2 of those. And your oxygen is 16 times 5. Right? So once you multiply it out and add them together, your empirical mass should be 141.94 grams. Right? So remember, your note said it was N is equal to GFM, your gram formula mass, over your empirical formula mass. This one's your formula, your empirical formula, and your GFM, they gave it. It tells you there. Has a molar mass of 283.9, right? So you're going to have 283.9 grams divided by 141.94 grams, right? So once you divide it, your number is 2, right? So that what that means to find, this was your empirical, to find your molecular, you have to multiply your empirical times the factor that you get, so 2. So that means you're going to multiply P times 2. So 2 times 2 is now 4. And you're going to take 5 times 2, which is now 10. So this is your molecular formula, right? So it's not that bad. We'll have another assignment once I'm back that will help you guys as well determine or do several examples to help you guys understand the concept. Right, so another example they give you, and more than likely this will be on the test. You will have one that we just did, but this will as well be on there. The fact that it's more tedious, there's a lot more math involved. Right, so they give you the percentage composition of chlorine, carbon, and hydrogen. And they as well give you the molar mass. Determine the empirical formula and the molecular formula. Right, so the first step is how to get empirical formula. Remember your poem? So you'll have to first do that and then do the step with it that we just did to find your molecular. Right, so convert your percent to mass. So take 71.65 grams of chlorine, 24.27 grams of carbon, and 4.07 grams of hydrogen. Right, so convert this to moles. Your grams of chlorine, 1 mole of chlorine. Your grams of carbon, 1 mole of carbon, and your grams of hydrogen to 1 mole of hydrogen. Right, so this comes straight from your periodic table. Right, so 3545 is grams of chlorine, 12.01 is grams of carbon, and then 1.01 grams of hydrogen. Right, so you're going to have to divide. Once you divide, your moles of chlorine should be 2.02 moles of Cl. Your moles of carbon should be the same, 2.02 moles of C. And your grams of hydrogen should be 4.03 moles of hydrogen. right? So to get your empirical, you have to divide by your lowest. So divided by 2.02, divided by 2.02, 2.02. Right? This is 1, this is 1, this should be 2. Right? So your empirical should be 1 carbon, there's 2 hydrogens, and 1 chlorine. I will not deduct points if you flip around, like if you were to put Cl1, C1, and H2. It's the same thing, but normally this is how it should be written the correct way. But we'll eventually get into that. But do not worry if you had your letters or your symbols mixed around instead of having it this way. Right, so that's your empirical. The next step is to find your molecular. Right, so when you're gonna find your molecular, you're gonna take your empirical, which was CH2Cl. Find your whole molecular weight, so that means there's 1 carbon, which is 12.01, 2 hydrogen, which is 1.01, and 1 chlorine, which is 35.45. Add them all together, and this should be 49.48. 48 grams. Right? So this is your your EFM. Your empirical formula mass. Right? So to find your molar factor, I guess, is N equals GFM over EFM. Right? This is your EFM, and your GFM is what they gave you. So I told you here your molar mass is 98.96, right? So that's your GFM. 98.96 over what you just calculated, 49.48. When you divide it, this equals 2. Right? So you're going to take your empirical and multiply it by that factor. So now your molecular is 2 times carbon, so 2 times 1 is 2, so you should have C2. Hydrogen times the factor, so 2 times 2, the subscript, is 4. And your chlorine, it has a 1 times your factor 2, it should be 2. Right, so that is your molecular formula. Right, so like I said, I will post these slides so that way you guys use it as a backup, or if it's helpful, probably to look at it while I'm speaking, or however it is that you're going to use it, or as well start studying for your test, which is on Friday. I'll go ahead and post this tonight, and I will see you guys back on Wednesday. So in the meantime, you should finish up problems 12 and 13 from the assignment that I gave you yesterday. And I'm going to leave an assignment either way today to see if you guys are able to do it, or at least get some extra practice. I'll be back on Wednesday. We will do a lab. Make sure you check your remind if you have to dress out for the lab, and as well for any updates that I give you guys. All right, so y'all have a good one, and I'll see you back on Wednesday.